assembly. So far, if you've been following us, we've shown the disassembly, how to check and see if your kingpins are bad, adding new bushings to the kingpin, and now here we are getting ready to put the kingpin and the assembly back together. It will have a felt washer. It'll have a retainer bearing on the back. If you follow down here, that'll go right in place here. Then your kingpin will slide right up on it, like so. The kit does come with some spacers to help alleviate any play that you might have. And those spacers will follow up and go into this slot here. Making sure your fingers are clean, your hands are clean, and the surface is clean so you don't get any fragments of debris where that kingpin goes. We're going to line it up. Once you know that's lined up well, your kingpin will go in. There's a groove in the kingpin. That groove is to face where this hole will go. That's because there'll be a set pin that you recall we drove out will go back in there and help hold that in place. There's also a race bearing here. You want to get some grease down inside of there and pack that race. Alright, with the kingpin dropped down in, we're now setting up the brake lever. Where it should go. I like to do the brake lever in place first. It helps line up that kingpin before I drive in the set pin. Okay. Did add grease in here because this is actuated by grease to help it go back and forth. Okay. Fantastic. Next, you have this pin that we had problems taking out the old one, but again, the kit gives you a new one. It drives in at an angle and will help hold that kingpin from moving. I'll just go right there. We'll tap that in. Once that's driven in, you can then put the nut on, tighten that up. When that's tightened up, then you can start reassembling the nut for the brake lever. Alright, so we've tightened up this bolt for the brake assembly and adjuster. So that's together now. And now we're getting ready to do the brake hub. We've got the kingpin down in and tightened up. Everything's looking really good. Brake assembly, if you remember, only had 4 bolts. We'll get these 4 in place. Does go bolt, lock washer, castle nut, and then a Carter key. Once everything's all tightened up and aligned. Alright, we just finished putting the 4 bolts in the brake hub assembly. That's tightened up nice and tight. Now we're getting ready to do the brake actuating rod. It slides right up into the brake assembly through the kingpin. So when you actuate the brake, you can see that rod goes up and down. That applies tension on this brake piece here, which then expands and contracts the brake pad. This piece is consisted of 4 pieces. You have a dowel that sits in here. That then will sit here. And you have a 4th washer here. That will all assemble through the brake pads and the washers. Everything you've taken off before. So. You can slide that in there. And you take the nut and just start that a little bit. And just gives you a free hand. And we started putting these washers on with the Carter key. Just spreading it there out of the way. Like so. We'll later spread these over and bend them over nice. I'm just trying to get this together so you can mostly see what's going on, how the expander functions. And as you can see, the rod then sits up into the expander. When you press the brake pedal, that will expand your brakes and contract them. The bearings for the brake pad will ride in between that expander. So you may have to coax some adjustment out of it to get things in place. All right, we finished up putting the 4 bolts in for the brake hub. Tighten those up so we're nice and solid. We've then put the dowel up through the kingpin that adjusts the brakes, and we've done the brake adjuster all back in place. We've then put the washers back in and Carter keys. We'll expand these Carter keys yet. And then you'll have 2 springs for your brakes, which will run through this hole, this hole here. And then get stretched to this pin right down here. And then you'll repeat it for the other side, for the bottom. If you go too tight, it's not going to want to return very well. So you're going to have to really watch the adjustment on this. When you get it where you have nice function of expansion and contraction, then you can go ahead and put the Carter key in. I hope to show you more adjustment as I go. So stay tuned.